is Peter Williams. I have the great good fortune of being the chairman of the trustees of the Daiwa Anglo-Japanese Foundation, and my very pleasant task is to warmly welcome all of you, particularly in view of the disruption on transport with the Lewisham accident earlier today. So we're very grateful to see so many of you here this evening. The topic for tonight, cybersecurity, of course, is on everybody's mind. It is on every politician's lips and tongue. It needs no reminder from me to take ourselves back to those events in October and November in the United States of America, where it is just conceivable, in fact, possibly even probable, who knows, that a lack of cybersecurity in the Democratic Party and in other parts of the US government may have influenced the outcome of a presidential election. So when I come to introducing our very distinguished speaker a moment or two ago, I would suggest to her that the question mark against national and business threat is removed. I don't think any of us here this evening can have the faintest shred of doubt that it does indeed constitute a threat to what we call civilized societies. I'm a physicist, almost a mathematician, and many of my mathematical friends at the Royal Society, Ross Anderson, Cambridge, for example, have been concerned for many, many years about the threat to cybersecurity. We're now all familiar with these wonderful names like fancy bears and what allegedly is going on in cyberspace. So for the Daiwa Foundation to put on a lecture of such nature this evening is actually highly topical, extremely relevant, and focuses on a topic which will not go away, which will be a challenge and a threat to governments for decades to come, I suspect. We're very grateful indeed to our distinguished speaker, Mihoko Matsubara, who is described in the program, needs relatively little introduction from me, but she is the Chief Security Officer for Japan for Palo Alto Networks. And Mihoko-san has kindly brought along some brochures, both in English and in Japanese, from Palo Alto Networks. So when you're mingling with your fellow guests at the reception a little bit later, in the Regency room just downstairs, immediately below you, please take not only these, but some abstracts of some publications as well. Matsubara-san, of course, spent 9 years in the Japan Ministry of Defense before taking up a Fulbright scholarship at the Johns Hopkins School in Washington, D.C., since when she has worked in Japan and in America, and indeed in Europe, on this most important topic that she is going to describe to us tonight. So, Matsubara-san, I have very great pleasure in asking you to address us this evening. There will be time for, I hope, some vigorous question and answer sessions after she has spoken, and then we'll welcome you more to an informal gathering downstairs for drinks afterwards. Lest you have forgotten, colleagues, please make sure your mobile phones are switched off, otherwise you may be hacked while you sit here unsuspecting. In the very unlikely event that there is a fire alarm, do not use the lift, go swiftly down the stairs, and the muster point, I'm pointing in the wrong direction, is on the far side of the road, adjacent to Regent's Park. That's about it, sir. Please, dozo.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me? People in the back side? Okay. So I really appreciate the Daiwa Foundation generously hosted this event for me to share my perspectives about what's going on in Japan in terms of cybersecurity toward Tokyo 2020. And my talk today will consist of 4 parts. First, let me talk about Japan's cultural and historical background so that you can understand better about why Japan is taking these specific steps right now. How many people actually have worked with the Japanese before? Okay, most of the people. How many people actually work in the cybersecurity industry or the government right now? Okay, about half. Thank you. So maybe you are in a better position to talk about this than me today. And my second topic will be about Japanese policy making efforts, especially the cybersecurity guidelines for business executives and also other guidelines specifically for Tokyo 2020. And my third topic is about Japan's two main focuses: cyber threat information sharing and also human resources development. And finally, what's next for Japan and also for the international community, including the United Kingdom. So when you think about Japanese security or cybersecurity, you may want to remember the Japanese saying, "Water and safety are free," because this reflects the Japanese traditional mindset toward security and safety in general. Thanks to the ocean surrounding Japan, we didn't have to too much worry about security and safety until the mid-19th century. Even after that, because of the relatively invisible nature of cyber attacks, except for DDoS attacks and website defacement, Japanese people didn't prioritize cybersecurity compared to physical security. And we also have to take into account the legacy of World War II and the Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, which prohibits Japan from possessing offensive military capabilities. So what's happened to cybersecurity because of these impacts? Well, because we are so hesitant to have offensive capabilities, we have been also hesitant to research defensive capabilities based upon the research of offensive capabilities. And this also impacts our capabilities to have practical and realistic cyber exercises, which consist of red team and blue team, offense and defense. And it is difficult for us to have a real red team in Japanese cyber exercises. And this also has some influences toward Japanese cyber threat intelligence capabilities. Again, the legacy of World War II has made negative connotations toward intelligence in Japanese context. So intelligence doesn't necessarily mean only about state surveillance. Actually, it is to help your decision-making process. But since Japanese had to tend to keep distance from intelligence or cyber threat intelligence, we didn't appreciate too much about cyber threat intelligence or cyber threat information sharing. And also because Japanese traditional procurement system tends to focus only on something countable. If cyber threat intelligence in reports, it is okay because you can count pages. So this report is 20 pages or 100 pages. Okay, you can pay for that. But what if cyber threat intelligence is not in reports, it is very difficult and challenging for Japanese organizations to how to categorize that kind of procurement. I believe Japan has had 4 game changers in terms of cybersecurity in the past. The first one came in September 2011 when one of the Japanese main newspapers revealed that Japanese major defense contractor was breached to steal information about nuclear plants and submarines. And it was the first time for the Japanese media, major media, to start report about cyber security and cyber incidents almost every single day. For the first time, Japanese average people around the world cyber security or cyber attacks. But still, at that time, most of the people believe that it's nothing to do with us because we are just average people. We are not important enough to be targeted by adversaries. So it makes totally sense for the cyber attackers to be after the government or defense contractors because they have tons of secret information. But we have no secret information. Why do we have to be worried about? That was the mindset. But soon after that, we had to change that concept. In March 2013, it was the second game changer. Do you remember what happened? So massive cyber attacks, cyber sabotage wiped data from hard drive of PCs and servers belonging to South Korean TV broadcasters and banks. So fortunately enough, TV broadcasters were able to continue their broadcast even though they had to go back to handwriting because they were not able to use PCs. But some of the ATMs got paralyzed for hours. And this shocked Japanese massively because now we realize that, oh, actually cyber attacks are not just about defense contractors or the government. Actually, it can impact our daily life. We are not able to withdraw our money from ATMs. So we should take deep into it. So I remember that Japanese companies started to receive lots of inquiries about this type of incident. So we started to develop our deeper interest in cybersecurity and cyber threats. And 6 months later, Tokyo was selected to host Tokyo 2020. And Japanese government and industry were determined that we have to make this event successful. This is about not only just about events or sports, this is also about national pride. So we have to make sure the security and safety in both the physical and the cyber domains. And after that, Japanese government has been very active about crafting and issuing and revising cybersecurity guidelines and policies, which I will touch upon in a minute. And in May 2015, hopefully the final game changer happened in Japan. Massive leaks of personal information from Japan Pension Service happened. And because it was right before the Japanese government was launching the My Number system, which is equivalent to American Social Security number, people got very worried about the negative consequences and also potential breaches of My Number related information. So actually the Japanese government was ready to release the new national cybersecurity strategy at that time, but they had to postpone the timing of release to make sure to address how to deal with this type of massive breaches in the new cybersecurity strategy. So I already mentioned that the Japanese government has been very active about crafting cybersecurity guidelines and policies, because the government realized there is a huge gap between the Japanese and global community in terms of cybersecurity awareness level. People in the back can see the numbers on this screen. So, this is based upon a PwC survey in 2014. So PwC asked questions to Japanese companies and also global companies, same question. And when you ask, does your company have business executives who actively pursue cybersecurity measures? Only 27% of Japanese said that yes. But if you ask the same question to global companies, it's almost 60%, more than double. And if you ask another question, should business executives discuss how to prevent cyber attacks at their board meetings? About 50% of Japanese companies say yes. But if you ask the same question to global companies and overseas, they say it's almost 90%. So there's a gap between the cybersecurity awareness level. So that's why Japanese government learned that, okay, because we are running out of time before Tokyo 2020, we actually had to encourage the leadership of Japanese companies to take the initiative to invest more in cybersecurity. So I have three important policies I want you to remember from this session. The first one is the Basic Act for Cybersecurity in 2014, because it gave legal authorities to the National Information Security Center, or NISC, for the first time. So now they are able to order other ministries and agencies to submit reports or information about incident with NISC. And NISC is now able to hire mid-career people in addition to people who are seconded from the ministries and agencies and from Japanese companies. So it is helpful for them to accumulate networks and also expertise of cybersecurity. And the second important one is the cybersecurity strategy in 2015. Before that, all of information security strategy or cybersecurity strategies focus on only negative side of cyberspace, increasing cyber threats and cyber attacks. It is true, we cannot forget about it, but it is also true that cyberspace is a frontier of innovations. We cannot get rid of PCs or servers and devices anymore because we are too much reliant on those innovations. And the cybersecurity strategy also encourages companies to take a top-down approach rather than bottom-up, because we are running out of time. And it's not just about technical issues, it's about human issues. So for the first time, the strategy encouraged Japanese companies to have positions, CISO or Chief Information Security Officer, to take the lead for cybersecurity measures. And the strategy clearly stated that cybersecurity is not a cost center, but it's an opportunity to invest in for business risk management. And based on this strategy, the Japanese government issued the cybersecurity guidelines for business leadership in December 2015. And it said that business leadership needs to take the initiative for cybersecurity. And the reason why the Japanese government had to follow up on the national cybersecurity strategy is because Japan had been facing increasing breaches and cyber threats, just like any other country in the world. And those cyber threats are actually led to the loss of reputation, damages to reputation, and also financial losses. And the guidelines have 3 principles. The first one is to encourage companies to invest in cybersecurity and do not consider cybersecurity as a cost center. And to make sure cybersecurity not only for their own company, but also for business partners and subsidiaries in supply chain. And finally, also the guidelines encourage companies to have good communications with their partners and subsidiaries and also stakeholders to ensure the accountability and also for information sharing. The guidelines also have 10 action items for business leadership and CISO team to develop cybersecurity policy and have good team and also have enough amount of budget. The government revised the cybersecurity guidelines for business executives last month. And the biggest change they made between the 2 versions is that the second one sounds more encouraging and also urgent in terms of why the executives need to pursue the first principle to invest in cybersecurity. The first version noted that it is nearly impossible to calculate return on investment in cybersecurity. It is true, but it doesn't sound very urgent because it's true all the time. But if you take a look at the revised version, it says business executives are responsible for investing in cybersecurity because it's an indispensable part of their business strategies, and cyber attacks are unavoidable in today's business environment. It sounds more urgent. And even though guidelines are not legally binding in Japan, it sets a certain level of expectation to Japanese companies. And actually, right after the release of the first version, I started to see more Japanese C-level people showing up to cybersecurity seminars and conferences in Japan, which never happened before. So I'm sure that this will have positive impacts on the mindset of Japanese businesses and business executives. And of course, to ensure the security and success of Tokyo 2020, the Japanese government has to pursue the security of critical infrastructure, and Japanese government has been working on it. But at the same time, cybersecurity is not just about critical infrastructure, because Japanese government doesn't define manufacturers and also tourism as part of critical infrastructure, but they are so critical for the success of Japanese economic growth and also Tokyo 2020. So that's why Japanese government issued 2 documents about IoT security last year, and it encouraged Japanese manufacturers to pursue security by design or consider and include security functions in designing and manufacturing stages. And even though manufacturers are not part of critical infrastructure in Japan, it encourages manufacturers to be committed to IoT security. Last year, we had another huge breach against one of the Japanese biggest tourism company. And after that, the Japanese tourism agency issued a report about this incident and also encouraged the tourism industry to take cybersecurity measures and also use cyber insurances to raise their awareness on also the cyber threat information sharing. And actually, Japanese tourism companies already launched a framework to share cyber threat information. So the Japanese have two main focuses on cybersecurity at the moment. One is cyber threat information sharing, and the second one is human resources development. And if you ask, do you think cyber threat information sharing is important? Of course, everybody says yes. But if you ask, are you actually doing it? Then people may say, maybe you first. So if you ask, do you share cyber threat information with other companies? You can see a gap between Japanese companies and global companies because only 30% of Japanese companies say yes, whereas 65% of global companies are actually sharing cyber threat information. And why? So this is based upon PwC report, and 40% of Japanese companies which do not share cyber threat information with other companies says, because there's no adequate information sharing framework and they are worried about personal information, and also they do not have adequate technologies to do that, or they actually do not trust their competitors. I think I can totally see that, but I also believe that there are more than that, and also there are some cultural reasons. Because Japan has the culture of shame, as Ruth Benedict pointed out 70 years ago. And Japan has relatively short history of volunteerism to be willing to contribute to a bigger community rather than your own residential community. Japanese are more hesitant to share cyber threat information with other companies compared to British or Americans. Because nobody wants to reveal the fact that my company was breached or cyber attacked and caused damages to our customers. Of course not, but because the culture of shame in Japan, it makes more difficult for Japanese to share that kind of information with others because it causes the loss of faith in the public. So Japan has several frameworks to share cyber threat information. And one of them is called JCIP. So it was established 5 years ago. It's an IPA, or Information Technology Promotion Agency, and Ministry of Economy and Trade and Industry are taking the lead. And it took a couple of years for them to get things going, But I heard that their positive information sharing is going on. And we also learned best practices from Americans. We have two ISACs at the moment. One is ICT ISAC. ISAC stands for Information Sharing and Analysis Center. And another one is Financials ISAC, which closely works with American Financial Services ISAC. And Japan is launching at least two more ISAC in the coming years. One is Electricity ISAC, and another one is also a Transportation ISAC. In addition, Japanese auto manufacturers and car part manufacturers are launching a framework to share cyber threat intelligence this year, but I'm not sure if it is called ISAC or not. The reason why the Japanese prioritize electricity is because after Fukushima, Japanese became more worried about a sustainable supply of electricity. So that's why the Japanese government has issued at least 3 cybersecurity guidelines exclusively for the protection of electric power industry. And I believe that Japanese government is trying to scale the efforts to other energy sectors this year. This relates to why Japanese government and industry focusing on human resources development, because it makes also because the shortage of cybersecurity professionals also impact your capabilities to share cyber threat information with other companies. I was not able to find a similar statistics from the United Kingdom, but in Japan, most of IT professionals are allocated to IT services companies, such as system integrators, whereas the ratio is opposite in the United States. Almost 72% of IT professionals are in-house, and it makes it easier for American end users to take their own cybersecurity measures, and they do not have to rely on everything in terms of cybersecurity or IT security on IT service companies. But in Japan, companies tend to outsource almost all IT-related work to IT security companies or IT companies. And this makes it difficult for Japanese end users to have people to find out which information to share with whom at what time. So how much shortage do we face in Japan? So IPA, or Information Technology Promotion Agency, estimated that 22,000 professionals were in short in 2014. But Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, or METI, estimated last year that it will be about 193,000 will be in short in 2020 when the Tokyo 2020 is held. So both Japanese government, companies, and academia are taking steps to overcome the gap. And METI and Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications are taking the lead in the Japanese government. METI is launching a cybersecurity center for industry later this year to educate or train 100 mid-career cybersecurity professionals to protect critical infrastructure and also to learn how to craft strategies and policy for their company. And students will be recruited from critical infrastructure companies. And this is not just unilateral efforts. Reportedly, this center will collaborate with American DHS to have joint cyber exercises between the Japanese and Americans. And the center will have some test beds to simulate cyber attacks against critical infrastructure. And Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications also launched National Cyber Training Center later this year. But this is not for mid-career people. This targets younger people under 25 years old. So students will be recruited from colleges, universities, and also professional schools so that this center can annually train and educate 100 youngsters to help and protect Tokyo 2020 and also be cybersecurity entrepreneurs and researchers afterward. And I think these are very positive move from the Japanese government. Of course, it takes at least 1 year or a couple of years for them to graduate from these centers. But once they graduate and go back to their own company or start working for a company or the government or university, they will have positive impact to change the traditional Japanese mindset that cybersecurity is not just about technical issues, but it is also for strategies and policies and tactical operations. And Japanese companies are also taking steps. About 30 Japanese leading companies established a cross-sectoral committee for cybersecurity human resources development in June 2015. And it was the first time for Japanese companies to initiate such a cross-sectoral collaborative framework for any kind. And it was epoch-making for Japanese companies to do this to show a public-private academic collaboration to establish an ecosystem to educate and recruit and retain and maintain good cybersecurity professionals in their own organization. Compared to other nationals, Japanese business people tend to just wait for instruction from the government rather than proactively try to talk to the government or academia to influence their policies and decision making. But I was pleasantly surprised to see this establishment of cross-sectoral committee because I can see the clear deadline of Tokyo 2020 actually started to change the Japanese business mindset to do more and do better for cybersecurity and for our own country. And right now, 48 members belong to this committee, and they are from financial, ICT, insurance, media, transportation. So they are all over from Japan. And they published a final report of stage 1, meaning a survey, last year. And this report provided a list of cybersecurity jobs and required skill sets based upon their interviews with their members. And they also categorized which work to in-house and outsource. So I think this provides a good reference to any Japanese companies which are trying to figure out what kind of cybersecurity professionals they should hire. And also this is very helpful for non-Japanese companies and also non-Japanese government or universities to find out what they can do to help the success of Tokyo 2020 and also the security of Japanese people. But unfortunately, all of the documents available and published by the committee is only available in Japanese. And in stage 2, the committee aims to implement specific measures to cultivate and maintain cybersecurity professionals in a balanced ecosystem, collaborating with the Japanese government and universities. And a couple of Japanese universities are also making efforts for human resources development. The Kyushu universities located in the western part of Japan started to teach a basic cybersecurity course in 3 years ago. And it was just an elective, but it teaches not only about technical issues, but they also teach what is cyber crimes and what is cyber ethics and what is legal issues under the Japanese law and what is privacy and what is the relationship between the privacy and security. And it became mandatory for all freshmen last year. And this is a small step just in one university. But I hope that this will expand to other Japanese universities so that Japanese youngsters can learn this. Cybersecurity is nothing special. This is actually part of our daily life or our business operations. We have to make sure to make cybersecurity weave into our daily lives and business operations. And another university in Kyushu, University of Nagasaki, established the first information security department at a Japanese university last year. But I also have to emphasize that there have been several Japanese graduate schools which already have information security departments. So what's next for Japan and also for international community? Well, the Japanese government plans to craft 3 cybersecurity strategies later this year. Critical infrastructure, R&D, and also human resources development. And when they craft these strategies, what do they have to keep in their mind? I think we have to have a big vision for the society we want to live in 2020 and beyond. What kind of technologies we want to have, what kind of society we want to achieve and realize, and what kind of security we need to have to make it happen. And because cybersecurity is not just about Japan, cyber attacks are borderless. It can impact any company or any sector or any countries, even if the cyber attacks were against Japan. So we have to have global collaboration and cross-sectoral collaboration. And I'm very pleased and I'm very appreciative that I see so many people here today from different countries, different sectors, and different organizations. And it reflects the fact that cybersecurity is not just about one specific sector. It is not just about cybersecurity companies. It is about all of us. And this shows the strong interest of an indication of how much interest we already have in cybersecurity. And I really look forward to working with you on this important mission to make Tokyo 2020 successful and ensure the security not only for Japan, but also for wider audiences and global collaboration and community. Thank you.
Matsubara-san, I will thank you again later, but please do sit down. Very much, I'm sure you all agree, a wake-up call on an issue, regardless of where we all come from, anywhere in the world. It is a threat for us, our children, and our futures. I'm very glad that you finished on this international point.